What is up, everyone? Appreciate you guys taking your time out of your day to give another listen to the Burton TD podcast. It's kind of a big week this week, Super Bowl week, second biggest year, second favorite time of the year for me personally. I'm more of a draft fan, but I'm just a loser like that. Anyway, as always, I got my man Tony here. Adrian's also stopping by as well. And we also have one of our pledge brothers, Mike Skolsky, joining us. Skolsky, thanks for joining us, my man.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome, guys. Well, let's get into it. We all know what we want to talk about this week. It's all about the Super Bowl. So, guys, let's go around the horn here. What advantages do you guys see for the Birds going into this matchup in the Super Bowl of the Patriots?
I'm looking at the offensive line of New England, and I think it's something that you can attack. So I'm looking for some deep penetration from the Eagles' defensive line. So let's take a look at this line. All right, so you got a solid left tackle in Nate Solder. He should be able to maybe solidify Derek Barnett. We'll see what happens there. But you look at the rest of that line. Joe Tunney, their left guard, David Andrews, their center, Shaq Mason, their right guard, and Cameron Fleming filling in for Marcus Cannon. These four can definitely be exploited. Now, the other side of the equation is Tom Brady and how quickly he gets the ball out of his hands. So you have to get into the backfield quickly. We look at Jacksonville and how great their defensive line was. They were only able to pressure Brady 5 times. So going back to this matchup, I'm looking at Fletcher Cox against Shaq Mason. Another matchup to watch potentially on third down is Brandon Graham if he's in at defensive tackle going against Tunney. So I think those are two matchups you can definitely exploit. You look at Fleming as well. Brandon Graham potentially bending the edge against him, getting to the quarterback. Chris Long, he had 4 strip sacks on the season. So getting after Brady is going to be the key to winning this game, and the Eagles might be able to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree with Adrian. I don't think this is that complicated. With Wentz being hurt, Fletcher Cox is the Eagles' best player. And it just so happens that the interior of their offensive line is also, I don't want to say it's a weakness of the Patriots, but it's definitely not one of their strengths. So totally expect Fletcher Cox, Timmy Jernigan, even Bo Allen a little bit to get in there. And in certain packages, you're going to see Curry in the middle. You might even see Brandon Graham in the middle there sometimes too on nickel and dime. I feel like we said this already last week, but when you get Tom Brady moving backwards instead of side to side, that's pretty much his only weakness. So I don't think this game is that complicated. If we can get pressure right up the middle, then the Eagles have a shot.
I mean, I think everyone's just hitting the nail on the head right here. It's our front four. I mean, Tom Brady's such a cerebral quarterback that it's absolutely imperative that you get pressure on him with your front four. And thankfully, that's probably our deepest position on the entire team. We're not 4 players deep. Our depth players could be starters on plenty of teams in the NFL. So it's absolutely crucial that we can get pressure with our defensive line. And I think we will. And I think that gives us a big advantage. It's probably our biggest advantage. And as Bert can probably attest to, one of the Patriots' weaknesses in the playoffs are goofy looking quarterbacks who randomly get hot in the playoffs. And I think we have one of those as well.
Hey, look, Joe Flacco is still counting those checks from getting hot in the playoffs, all right? And Napoleon Dynamite potentially, as I said this in our last show, if Nick Foles plays really well, he might be the starting quarterback in Cleveland next year. I mean, if he's keep hitting on all cylinders, I agree, fellas. Obviously, getting pressure interior, making sure that Brady, who, as we all know, is far from Michael Vick. If you have to make him try to run to make throws, it's not going to happen. The key thing is, as you guys talked about, is getting pressure up the middle, but getting pressure up the middle without having to blitz. Because as we know what the Patriots love, they have Gronk, and he's a matchup nightmare, and they also have really good backs out of the backfield. So you don't want to have to blitz if you don't have to. Otherwise, Brady can easily get rid of the ball quickly. Now, I would say the biggest advantage for the Birds in this week is going to be the ability to run the ball. I really don't see anything in the front 7 of the Patriots that really scares me. The offensive line for the Eagles, hands down, has been the best in the NFL this year. You have 2 really physical running backs, and Clement's a nice little complimentary there. I would say the running game is the biggest advantage for the Eagles going into the Super Bowl.
And even to comment on what you were saying about the blitz, you don't beat Tom Brady by blitzing. You don't beat Tom Brady by playing zone. You got to have an aggressive. You got to be aggressive with your jams and your press. But the thing is the Eagles play a lot of off coverage. So I'm curious to see what Jim Schwartz will dial up in this game, because Tom Brady, get the ball out quick. You want to disrupt the timing between he and the wide receivers. So I think in this game, pressing a little bit more than normal is going to be key as well.
Yeah, it's all about having multiple coverages, giving Brady as many looks as possible. I mean, he's the greatest quarterback of all time, so you're not just going to instantly roll a coverage out and get him stumped, but you have to roll multiple coverages out. Perfect example, I think, about last year in the Super Bowl. Robert Alfred played as if that he was going to play man coverage, then fell into the flats. Brady throws it right to him. Falcons get a pick six early, and all of a sudden, Atlanta's look takes a big, big ride. So you got to play multiple coverages, but you only can play multiple coverages if you don't have to blitz. Because if you're not blitzing, you're now able to have those backers play a spy, play a trail tech on Gronk, play over the top of him, do a whole bunch of different stuff. But if you can't get home early, this could be a big problem. Now, Skolsky and Tony, you guys both talked about depth. Fantastic depth of the defensive line. This is what allowed the Giants to beat the Patriots, the ability to get multiple guys after them. And think about this, guys. When the Falcons were really rolling, it was because Grady Jarrett last year was having a Super Bowl MVP level performance. I don't think that's a stretch. See, Fletcher Cox can absolutely duplicate that.
He had 3 sacks, if I remember correctly. Right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, and he had a couple tackles for losses, too.
Yeah. Let's not forget who made the big play in the NFC Championship game. It wasn't one of our starting defensive ends. It was Chris Long who got that nice strip sack on Case Keenum.
And give the rookie some credit, too. He had a big strip sack, too.
Yep.
Yeah, Derek Barnett.
It's both your backups right there.
So you even talked about the Giants and how the Eagles can replicate their game plan. But I thought the best game plan against New England that I've seen, actually the 2010 divisional playoff round, if you remember the Jets and what they did against the Patriots. You want to talk about mixing different coverages and mixing a lot of different looks. They were basically rushing with 3 and dropping back 8. They had 11 defensive backs active for that game. So just to kind of show you there, another recipe for success if you want to beat Tom Brady.
No question, Adrian. Yeah. And, to kind of take it a step further with those Jets, we also remember the Jets probably had the best 2 corners in the NFL that year. So, that makes everything go a lot smoother when you're able to say, hey, I have the 2 best corners in the NFL. They're going to lock down the outsides, and then we'll play everything over the middle. When you can have Gronk, but we'll put 3 guys on him because we can win one-on-one on the outsides. Let's flip it here, guys. All right, so let's talk about disadvantages now. Going back around the horn here, fellas, what disadvantages do you see for the Eagles coming into this Super Bowl?
Well, first off, I think it's going to be really, really difficult covering Gronk, obviously. The big weakness for the Eagles since Jordan Hicks went down, covering tight ends, covering running backs out of the backfield. So Gronk is going to get his. He's going to get his 100 yards. It's just a matter if you keep him out of the end zone or not. The other thing to watch out for are the running backs coming out of the backfield, and you got a couple of them. You got the quick and jittery Dion Lewis, James White, who had 14 receptions in the Super Bowl last year, and then even Rex Burkhead. So I don't expect them to run the ball a lot, but they're going to have a lot of de facto runs with those passes in the flats to the running back. So I think those 2 are the things to watch out for, Gronk and the backs out of the backfield.
Yeah, not to just repeat everything that Adrian said, but I completely agree. I think the backs coming out of the backfield scare me a little bit more than Gronk because, like you said, Gronk's going to get his. I'm worried that they're going to be able to hit 1 or 2 big screen passes or maybe even a misdirection type play out of the backfield. Not because the Eagles' defense is undisciplined, but just because most of those guys, other than Chris Long and Malcolm Jenkins, they haven't been there, and they're going to be hype. and first couple possessions of the game, I could see them, not a trick play, but just something that's going to get the defense flowing in one direction, and then you hit them with it like a counter screen on the other side, something along those lines. And like Adrian was saying, their backside of the backfield, it's not just checkdowns. Like, those are a legitimate part of the offense, and they're both really good at it. So I would give that the slight advantage over Gronkowski, but Gronkowski scares me too.
Yeah, quickly agreeing with you guys. Definitely the running backs and Gronk. I'm not too worried about the running backs actually in the running game, but when you have guys like Deion Lewis who can get creative with, kick them out, swing passes, screens. That's what we need to look out for on defense. And then to say something a little different, I think just experience and then continuity. I mean, we know the Patriots obviously have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time with Tom Brady. And on our side, we have Nick Foles, who's making only his fourth playoff appearance, I believe. So, I mean, it's which Nick Foles are you going to get? Are you going to get the Nick Foles that throws 7 touchdowns in one game, that played almost a perfect game in Minnesota? Or are you going to have the Nick Foles that can't seem to hit the broadside of the barn like we saw his first few starts this year? So, I mean, it's really, I guess, up to, which Nick Foles is going to show up, because if we get anything close to Minnesota and our defense plays like they should, I think we have a good chance. But if he starts playing like he did when he first came in, it's going to be tough to match Brady.
Did any of us actually think Gronk wasn't going to play? I mean, like, for a split second, did any of us think Gronk wasn't going to play in the Super Bowl?
Gronk play.
I never was worried.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it was silly. I think the people who believed Gronk wasn't going to play were the same people who believed Brady wasn't going to play last week.
Yeah. Kind of to lament even further on Skolsky's point, and talking about the RPOs and with Nick Foles, I'm curious to see if the Eagles can continue that success in the Super Bowl, because the New England's defense is a little bit different. They like to mix in a lot of different things. With Atlanta, they pretty much like to play cover 3. With the Vikings, it's pretty much man-to-man. But with New England, you might see some different looks on each and every drive. One drive, they might play press man. Another drive, they might play zone coverage. Another drive, they might blitz. So Matt Patricia, he mixes in a lot of different things, even a 4-3 and the 3-4, different fronts that he does. So by no means do I think this is going to be easy for Nick Foles. We'll see, though, if he can continue playing at the high level he's been playing the last, I'll say, 1.5 games, because that second half, the Falcons game on, I think he's played really well.
And that brings up another point. Someone who played excellent in the Minnesota Vikings game was Big V. And are we going to get the Big V that we can be a turnstile, or are we going to get the Big V that shut down Everson Griffin 2 weeks ago? So, I mean, if he can protect Foles, obviously that's a big advantage, and that helps our quarterback out a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, I think those.
Go ahead, Tony.
I think those are points. I mean, obviously Nick Foles versus Tom Brady is a disadvantage to the Eagles. Good point about Big V. I think another thing that is kind of slightly going under the radar, and I don't know how legitimate this is or not, but I'm concerned that there might be a faction of Eagles players who, in the back of their mind, are just kind of happy that they're there. Because, the human element of it, this team was not supposed to be there. This team has got there with a backup quarterback. It is what it is, you know what I mean? Like, the Patriots expect to be there every year, and I'm just concerned, kind of like I'm just concerned they're just going to be happy that they're there, and if they go down big early, they could get discouraged. But I don't envision that happening, and I'm not saying that's how most of the players feel. I'm just saying that the human element of it is hard to ignore.
I understand that point, but I think Doug Peterson's been doing a great job, and I thought Howie Roseman did a great job of mixing in veterans this year, not just going for those young guys with high potential. You also got those veterans who've been there before on those short-term deals, like Chris Long and players like that. So I'm hoping that veteran presence we have in the locker room will keep some of the younger guys from being, having that mentality. But it definitely is a concern for being, a relatively young team.
We'll see about the slow start though, because if I read this stat correctly, the Patriots have never scored in the first quarter of a Super Bowl. They've trailed in every Super Bowl that they've been in. So we take a look at the non-experience and all, the inexperience and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's been the Patriots that actually gets off to slow starts, and obviously they're the ones with all the experience and all that. So we'll see.
I think the one thing I would say is a quote disadvantage or a concern for me is Brandon Cooks. I mean, he has quietly been kind of kept in check the last several weeks, hasn't really exploded anywhere down the field. And I think what we're going to see happen is we're probably going to see Malcolm Jenkins probably take up a little more time on Gronk. That's probably the closest to physical matchup that's even. It's obviously not close, but that's the best answer the Eagles will have. That said, now all of a sudden you're going to get Cooks. And what concerns me about the Eagles, and you've had several good weeks of it now, but the double move. Because when you run a double move with a 6'4" receiver, yeah, and you get burned, maybe that's a 20-yard gain. You run a double move to Brandon Cooks, that's a 70-yard touchdown the other way. So, I understand that in theory the Eagles DBs have been playing fantastic, and I'm not taking that away from them. But Cooks is a dynamic route runner, and his double moves are going to sell it so much better than a lot of the receivers they played the last several weeks. I don't think it's a massive disadvantage, but it is something I would circle with a little bit of concern. I think the most obvious disadvantage is the head coaching situation.
Yeah, even to speak on that, the Darby against Cooks matchup, I think Darby does have a skill set to combat Cooks. Obviously, think of the quickness that he has and all that. I think he can hang with Cooks. We haven't seen a DB get beaten for a double move since that Oakland game and Amari Cooper. So they've really stepped up since that game. Ronald Darby has been tremendous. Jalen Mills has been tremendous. So we'll see again. But as of the last couple games, they've really stepped up in the secondary.
I think Patrick Robinson could have a tough time with Amendola, though, too. I mean, he's played great this year, too. He's been totally unexpected, and a lot of people didn't even expect him to make the team. But, I mean, you look at the game he had last week, they find ways to get him the ball and get him open.
But, yeah, I understand your point on the coaching as well. Where, I mean, Doug Peterson's someone that could be coach of the year, but, I mean, Bill Belichick. He's been here plenty of times before, and when you play a great coach like Bill Belichick, I feel like a common mistake a lot of coaches make is they get in their own head. Oh my God, I'm playing Patriots, I'm playing Brady, and they kind of outsmart themselves and do things they don't typically do. They get off their game, and to Doug's credit, he always stays aggressive. So that's the type of mentality you need to have against the Patriots. You need to stick to your game plan, and you need to be aggressive, because we saw what happened last Super Bowl when the Falcons stepped on the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair, Skolsky. I think about it this way. Doug is the coach of the year. Bill is the coach of our generation. I mean, sometimes we don't need to overthink it. He is the greatest coach I have ever seen, at least in the NFL. So you got to kind of give a tip of the cap there. And to your point, Skolsky, the Patriots will not lose. Understand this, guys. The Patriots don't lose games. You have to beat them. They're not going to be a team who in the fourth quarter is going to make a mistake and take a bad penalty or have a late turnover. No, you have to flat out beat them. And I think the biggest disadvantage isn't necessarily the skill set, because I would say the Eagles have a far better roster than the Patriots. But it's so mentally draining when you play a team like the Patriots, both as a player and as a coach, that you hype yourself up, like Skolsky said, about getting in your own head and saying, oh, this play has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. To the point that when you don't have a perfect play, the Patriots are right there to capitalize it.
I think the Belichick thing, to me, is kind of like the LeBron MVP debate. Anybody who has watched basketball over the past, say 8 years would tell you that LeBron should have won MVP every year, but they don't always give it to him just because of circumstances. You give it to the most, guy who put up the best numbers or whatever the case may be. To me, it's kind of the same way. The rest of the league knows every year Bill Belichick is the best coach, but they don't always give him coach of the year because you give it to guys like McVay or Peterson and whatnot.
Totally fair point, Tony. And, the same thing could be said, obviously, for Brady for the MVP. Very, very similar type of conversation. And guys, let's kind of do a fill-in-the-blank section here. So, if the Eagles will win if they blank.
If they get that consistent, deep penetration. That's what it's going to come down to. Have to do it for 60 minutes against Tom Brady. I think the other recipe for success is to control the ball, control the clock, limit the possessions. You take a look at the normal NFL game, you have about 12 of them. So in this one, I want the Eagles to have about 8 to 10, run the ball a lot. I mean, that's something Brendan was talking about earlier. Control the clock, screen game. I think that's going to be important. That's something that the Jaguars did well against the Patriots with Corey Grant. So moving the ball methodically down the field and causing disruption, major disruption in the backfield and Tom Brady.
Yeah, to me, it's if they win the turnover battle, which could be said about almost any NFL game in the history of the NFL, basically. And not only need to get pressure on Brady consistently, but they need to hit him consistently. And
yes.
Frankly, I don't care. I don't care if they even get a few flags thrown because of late hits. They need to hit him, and they need to hit him from beginning to end.
I think if you look down the Eagles roster, besides quarterback and maybe secondary, I think we have a more talented roster. So I think the biggest thing for the Eagles is that they don't beat themselves. And as Tony said, that means no turnover. It means limiting turnovers, winning the turnover battle, no stupid muff punts like we've already seen. Jake Elliott can't miss the chip shots that he's been missing sometimes this season. He's one of the strangest kickers. I'm more comfortable for him 45 yards out than I am any closer than 45 yards. So we can't have any missed extra points. We can't make those mistakes against the Patriots because they will. That's not a team that you can make those types of mistakes with. We need to play mistake-free football, and if we do that or as close to that as possible, I think we have a good chance.
That's a great point about Jake Elliott, Skolsky. I mean, think about how weird that is. In basic principle in life, we're always like, yeah, the closer we are to the goal in any sport, the easier the shot is. Now, he's got like that Steph Curry kind of phenomena. Get him back as far as possible because close to the end zone, it just seems like it just goes wide left or wide right.
Yeah, with 2 minutes left in the game, it's better off to just like take a knee at the 30-yard line instead of keep trying to chug forward and get extra yardage for your kicker.
And let's not forget he's also a rookie. I mean, obviously he's had the clutch kick. I mean, the Giants 60-yarder, it's a bomb. But, I mean, Super Bowl is a whole different monster.
Oh, yeah.
No question. I think the Eagles win the Super Bowl if they win the return game. So this is one of those things that's really underrated and underappreciated until you lose a game from it. Perfect example, 2 weeks ago now when the Jags lost to the Patriots, it was because they were doing a great job in the punt return game. Then all of a sudden the fourth quarter gave up a 20-yard return, and now all of a sudden the Patriots are in the game. So I think the Eagles will win the game if they move the ball consistently in the fourth quarter, because that was the other problem the Jags didn't do. That's what I'm talking about. When you have to knock the Patriots out, you have to move the ball in the fourth quarter. Falcons didn't do it. Jags didn't do it. Patriots beat both of them. And you have to win the return game. The Patriots are one of those teams that they find ways to beat you in the small things, and the turnover margin is the most obvious. The sacks one's very obvious. But moving the ball in the fourth quarter seems common sense, but it's so crucial. And then also making sure you win the return game.
And even situational football as well, because they're a team that's in the top 5 in terms of points allowed, but they give up a ton of yards, and they're 30th in pass defense. So you can move the ball on them. You just got to score inside the 20 and score touchdowns.
No question about it. No question about it, Adrian. I mean, Skolsky, you mentioned it yourself. There's no doubt the Eagles are the better roster, and that's why I have such appreciation for Belichick, because I don't think there's a single Pro Bowl level player. I take that back. There's 2 Pro Bowl level players in the 2 corners there in New England, but besides that, there's nothing that really scares you as a defense. But Adrian, just like you pointed out, they do a great job of bending, not breaking.
Yeah. And, it's crazy if you look at some of the statistics. They're 7th in sacks, which you probably wouldn't expect. I mean, when you think about who's causing pressure, Trey Flowers comes to mind, but who else, you know? So it's not the most talented front seven in the world. And I pretty much agree with you. Stephon Gilmore, Malcolm Butler, those guys are good, but nothing really else. You could also throw in Devin McCourty's name, but, you know.
I have an irrational nightmare of James Harrison getting like 3 sacks on Vitae. But like I said, it's irrational.
Stepping up, so we'll see.
At the same time, Tony, it's not irrational. He had a big sack last week against Jackson.
Yeah.
I know, that's
Like I said, it depends on which Vitae you get. I mean, he was amazing last week, shutting down a Pro Bowl defensive end, but then you've seen no-name defensive ends get the best of him multiple times in one game.
Yeah, I'm just concerned of that wily veteran having one last game in him.
Yeah, you know, he's currently in the weight room in New England, lifting every weight in the weight room at the exact same time, just getting ready for this game. Just watching that dude work out, he's just not human. Watching him lift everything in the weight room.
Well, you shouldn't be playing defensive line at 39 years old, so.
I just remember, like, I was talking with a buddy of mine who played for a while with the Colts and the Raiders, and he played with James Harrison in college. And I remember asking him once, like, what was it like lifting with James Harrison? And he was like, dude's half my size, and the entire team was so scared of him. He was like, we as a D-line, we wouldn't fight him as a unit. Like, he is just a whole nother animal of a creature. He's not even a human. He's like a cyborg. All right, let's flip this now. All right, so we use that kind of word, empty fill in the blank there. So flip this now. The Eagles will lose if.
Well, to me, this is easy, too. If they can't pressure Brady, I think he's going to pick them apart because one of the big reasons why the secondary has played so well, if you can pressure the quarterback, that obviously makes the job easier for the secondary. So if they can't get that pressure and that ball's coming out within 3 seconds, I think the Eagles could be in trouble. Also, tackling in the flats. If they're not tackling in the flats and tackling those running backs, that could be a dilemma as well.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be boring and just say the opposite of what I said before, but, I don't think it's that complicated. Football's a pretty simple game. If they lose a turnover battle, they're in trouble. And like Adrian just said, if they don't get pressure on Brady, they're in trouble. So I really think it's as simple as that. And also, I mean, if Nick Foles all of a sudden reverts to the Nick Foles that made him a backup quarterback, that's obviously going to hurt a lot too. But I think the Eagles, even if Foles doesn't look like the Nick Foles he did last week, I still think they're going to be able to move the ball on the Patriots defense one way or the other. So that's all I got.
I pretty much agree with you guys. I mean, not getting any pressure on Brady or then we have to dial up some blitzes and, then I think he'll just pick us apart at that point. And like you also said, which Nick Foles are we going to get? Is it going to be the one that looked that didn't look like he could really make a throw any more accurate than 5 yards down the field, or we're going to get the one where the Vikings where everything was a dime? As I said in my why would the Eagles win, that they can't beat themselves? Like I said, the pressure of playing the Patriots and playing Brady coming down from the coaching staff so far, Doug's done a great job. He seems to stick to his game plan, but I mean, if he tries to get too fancy or too conservative, if we do get out to an early lead, I mean, so many very good coaches have made that mistake. And also, you have guys like Jay Ajayi, who's had a couple bad fumbles the last few games, so we just need to limit those turnovers as well, as Tony said.
No question. I mean, turnovers, getting after Brady, those things are like top of the goal list. It's like, hey, if we don't get this, nothing else is really going to continue, on that goal list. I'm going to say the Eagles will lose if they do not run the ball effectively. Now, I'm gonna kind of throw a number out there. I'm going to say if the Eagles have less than 170 and 160 yards rushing, if the Eagles have less than 160 yards rushing, they will lose the game. And I say that number because an average NFL team has the ball about 12 possessions a game, ballpark. So when I say that number, I'm saying you need to be pretty much getting one guaranteed first down per drive. And the easiest way to do that while keeping, Brady off is obviously running the rock. So if the Eagles don't have 160 yards rushing, that will end the game. The other thing that I think will surely end the game is if the Eagles do not have 60-plus yards of total offense in the fourth quarter. If you're not able to move the ball in the fourth quarter and you give Brady the ball last, the game's over.
I think 160 is a little high, but I get your point.
Yeah, it's definitely time of possession.
Yeah.
Because, the best way to stop Brady is not to let Brady have the ball. So if we can run the ball effectively, that would be a huge advantage.
Yeah, and that goes back to even what I was saying before about limiting the game to like 8 possessions. Against Atlanta, it was 9. So you have a formula like that, I think you have a better chance of winning.
And also, it all goes back to, offensive line play. For our team, if Big V plays like he did the last game, great. If he reverts back to his old self in the Super Bowl, then Nick Foles is probably going to struggle. Our running game's going to struggle, and it could just be a disaster.
Yeah, good old Halapulivati Vaitai. Anybody else can say that name?
I'm not going to try.
The right side of the line. I know I said before that Fletcher Cox is the best player on the team now that Wentz is out, but I think we all could agree that Lane Johnson's a close second.
Maybe even Kelsey as well this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, all three of the Kelsey, Brooks, and Johnson. They've just been awesome.
Definitely.
I'll put a name in there too. They're all on the same level. They're all even. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Who is after Fletcher Cox? Who is the next best player?
Man, Lane Johnson's a great one. Zach Ertz is having a hell of a year. I would say in the Super Bowl, maybe not who the best player is, but I would argue the most important player is going to be Jay Ajayi.
Yeah,
what a pickup that might end up being if that ends up winning us the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
really.
Can you think of a bigger midseason pickup?
Yeah.
No way.
Frickin' Roseman. This is how we do it.
Especially not in the NFL.
Right, exactly. Not in the NFL. How often do you even see that type of caliber player get traded mid-season?
Yeah. Howie Roseman is setting a new precedent about how the NFL works and how the NFL trade deadline works. Because we've never seen that before. Until this season, really. We saw the Jay Ajayi trade. We saw the trade with Seattle. Who got traded there? Dwayne Brown, how they picked him up. So this could be something that we could be seeing from now on each and every season. Big players getting moved at the trade deadline. We have literally never really seen this before.
He almost ran his team like he was playing Madden, but in a smart, realistic.
Yeah, it might be a boring draft for us this year with no second or third rounder. But even with that third rounder, we got from the Ravens Tim Jernigan, who's been great for us. Now we have him locked up as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that my favorite thing about this is, the reason that Ajayi, got traded for as low as he did is there's all those concerns about how long is his knees actually going to hold up. You know what? If you win a Super Bowl, who cares how long his knees hold up? You cherish that moment, and you're okay with not having a running back, even if it's as early as next year. You're able to say, but we won a Super Bowl with him. That's worth the trade of the draft pick.
Yeah, and even the way they're using him during the season with the 3-headed attack, rarely was he really getting more than 15 carries. So they're using him correctly as well. And now is the point where you want to unleash him, and they kind of have a little bit more.
Yeah.
Hey, man, if he wins us a Super Bowl, we could have gave up a first-round pick, and he could retire after this game. I've been waiting. I've been waiting 27 years for that Super Bowl, so I'll be more than happy to give up a 4th-round pick.
Man, no kidding there. I'll take that back, Tony. I think you're probably right. That my number was a little high. I'll say 130, 140 range of carrying the ball, but it's all about limiting possessions, turnover, and just making sure again you keep Brady on the sidelines in a baseball cap, and not in a helmet.
Yep.
Well, I would be fine if they run the ball 34 times and only throw the ball 22 times. You know what I mean? If they're getting 5-6 yards a pop, and do it. But yeah, 160 was. I mean, that would, if they get 160, I guarantee you they win the game. Put it that way.
Totally fair. All right, let's go around the horn here, fellas. Who you picking? What's the score? And who's your MVP?
I've got 27-24. Jake Elliott kicks a late field goal. We'll go from 47 yards out because he can't hit anything inside 30. So I'll go with that. Fletcher Cox is going to be my Super Bowl MVP. And another matchup to watch, I don't know if I brought this up yet or not. I may have, so I'm sorry. I apologize. I think Nelson Aguilar is going to have a big game against Eric Rowe. I think Rowe is more of a guy that's an outside corner. He's a physical press kind of guy. I don't think he's really the best slot corner in the world. I think he might be a little bit too stiff-hipped for Aguilar's quickness. So I think Aguilar could have a big game. Just that's my sleeper MVP is Nelson Aguilar.
All right, I'm gonna go 30-28, and like Adrian on the last-second field goal by Jake Elliott. And I'm gonna say my MVP is Jay.
Man, Adrian, you took my score, and I was going to say Nelson Aguilar as my MVP.
Well, you can go with Nelson because I picked Fletcher. So
all right, I'll say a little different score just to be different. I'll say 20-17 Birds. I'm not gonna say game-winning field goal, but I'm feeling a game-closing interception, Malcolm Jenkins, and
Ooh.
And I'll go Nelson. I'll go Nelson as my MVP. I don't know. I mean, he's my dark horse. I have a feeling Alshon could have a couple nice touchdowns. Ajayi is a great pick, but I'm going to go with Nelson. And what a great ending to this season, to the story of this season for him. What a redemption that would be. He comes out Super Bowl MVP.
Patriots are a 4.5-point favorite. The line opened at 5.5. Obviously, I'm sure once the Gronk injury officially is lifted, him out of concussion protocol and being able to play, I'm sure that line will jump. That said, I got the Birds. I got the Eagles winning here, 31-27. And it's interesting. We all kind of went on pretty much, except for Adrian went, Fletcher Cox. We all talked about pass catchers or guys who were able to effectively move the ball. Yet no one said the number one target for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm taking Zach Ertz as my MVP.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have a very big advantage against those linebackers and safeties. Even if the two corners do a good job on Alshon and Torrey and Nelson, I don't see any of them stepping inside the hash to have to worry about Zach Ertz. So I'm taking Zach Ertz. I think in the fourth quarter he's going to get a game-clinching first down.
Okay, I like that. And
like
another point that we haven't brought up yet. The Patriots are a team that likes to take your top weapon away. Well, the Eagles have so many weapons. I mean, take away Zach Ertz, that's fine. Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, Jay Ajayi running the rock. So take away who you want. The Eagles have a lot of weapons that they can go to.
No one picks Nick Foles, so we all picked the Eagles, but no one picked Nick Foles.
Yeah, it's like I didn't want to go Nick Foles. It's like almost like an obvious pick. So I tried to be.
That's how. Hey, I mean, I picked Nelson Aguilar. You remember who had the big touchdown catch our last Super Bowl, right? Greg Lewis. That's right.
Lewis.
Yeah, that's right.
Nice name drop there, Skullman. Well done.
Yeah.
Got the obscure.
All right, speaking of obscure, let's take it to my favorite part of the Super Bowl, regardless of who's playing, the prop bets. So we get a whole bunch of weird things, and this is what I love to look at. Guys, when you think of the prop bets, are there any that are some of your favorites?
Yeah, the whatever reason, the immediate one that comes to mind is the Gatorade bath and what color the Gatorade is going to be. In the NFC Championship game, it was yellow, a little mellow yellow. They didn't really hit Doug Peterson square on the way that they should have. He didn't get a face full of Gatorade bath. He got a lot of it on the back. I'm hoping that there's going to be a specially made green Gatorade, but I don't know if it's going to go that way. But I'm going to go with blue for the Gatorade, and I'll go with that with the prop bet.
Mine was down to two. will any other members of NSYNC show up? And I'm going to go with no. And the other one was, will Pink be airborne at any time? And that, to me, is a definite yes.
I think I had it down to 2 as well. I think I had to go. My favorite though was, not to get political, but just the prop bet: total Donald Trump tweets on Super Bowl Sunday. Over and under is 5 tweets.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Is that the entire day Sunday? Because it's the entire day Sunday. I'm going the over, but if it's just during the game time, I might say, start of the game to end of the game, I want to say under.
Yeah,
I think that's a good one though. And then the other one I just had to say because it's a pretty conventional one, is how long will Pink take to sing national anthem? And that's over under 2 minutes. And I just wanted to point that one out because I was there for the record longest national anthem, and that was Aretha Franklin on Ford Field on Thanksgiving Day, and that was a 4-minute and 35-second national anthem.
You were there?
I was there for that one. Yeah, I remember stopping halfway through and looking at my brother. It's trying not to laugh. I mean, it was impressive, but it was impressive at the same time. This is insane how long this is.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So the average national anthem apparently is about 1 minute and 55 seconds.
Oh, so take the over then.
Yeah, because I think you got to. I feel like when you're on the national stage for the Super Bowl, I feel like you embellish a little bit. You hit those notes, you hold it. So I'm gonna go with the over on that.
Not to mention, dude, how often do you get the opportunity to sing the national anthem? Are you kidding me? I would be out there saying every word with a second pause to soak up every moment I have of that.
How long do you think Aretha Franklin would take to sing the Super Bowl national anthem?
Oh God,
6 minutes 37 seconds.
That would be a great prop bet.
I love these prop bets. I mean, you guys mentioned a bunch of them. Tony, you took the one I like. Will there be any members of NSYNC perform with Justin Timberlake? That's a good one. I saw another one of, will Justin Timberlake do any tribute to Prince since it is in Minneapolis? I absolutely think he will do something.
Yeah.
Other ones, Skolsky, I love that over under 5 tweets. I think that's a good line.
Yeah, that's Vegas for you, right?
Line, man. That's pretty much 1 a quarter, and then you figure one that's congratulations to blah 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 team for winning,
and then one for the national anthem because they're all going to stand.
Only congratulations if the Patriots win.
Yeah, he's a big Belichick.
He'll be bitter and butthurt if the Eagles win.
Well, man, I think the number 5 is good. I would take the over, but it's close. My 2 favorites here. How many times will the Rocky statue in Philadelphia be shown during the broadcast? Over, under 1?
Oh, definitely over. Because they're going to be talking about how it's an underdog story and compared to Rocky.
Is it for the whole day or just the game time?
Oh, it's a good question. The prop bet just says how many times will the Rocky statue be shown during the broadcast. So I assume game time.
That's a good line then.
I would take
they'll do that and cheesesteaks.
I would take the over because I would think they'll do one when the Eagles are coming out, and then I would think they do one at halftime to be a space filler.
And Mayor Kenny and Boston made that too, so they're gonna bring it up.
Oh yeah.
Did you guys know about the bet they made?
I heard it. Go ahead, Tony. Share it.
It's basically just if the Patriots win, then they're going to put a Patriots uniform on the Rocky statue for a day. And apparently there's an actual Rocky Marciano statue in Boston. And they're going to put an Eagles statue on an Eagles jersey on if the Eagles win.
I think the other thing that's been really cool this week, this isn't prop bet related, but a lot of the Boston market stores, they're putting Philly market on it instead of Boston. I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah, that is cool.
And I also got Chris Long's bet with the linebackers coach. You might have to help me with the pronunciation.
Oh yeah, Ken Flagioli. Yeah, so he's got to get a tattoo of his face. So there you go.
Yep, Chris Long said he said in the beginning of this year he made a bet with Ken Flagioli that if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, he'll get the tattoo of the coach on his body. So here we are.
He's awesome.
He might have a new tattoo coming.
Yeah.
You know he's actually going to do it too.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
not the type that'll fit.
I just did a show with my buddy E-Rock, Fourth and John, all those guys. So a bet that E-Rock made, if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, he's got to get Nick Foles' face tatted on his ass. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh.
Nick Foles by the hole.
Can
Everybody will just it's Napoleon Dynamite though in 10 years.
Oh,
so.
yeah, no question. Oh,
No, man. Even if he's on a different team next year, he'll be a Philadelphia legend forever if he pulls it off.
Oh, for sure. But everybody outside of Philly, they're just gonna be like, "Why do you have Napoleon Dynamite on here?"
Well, how many people are going to see his ass?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
we're asking a lot of important questions here towards the end. It gets a little weird towards the end here in our stuff.
Yeah, it does.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everyone taking some time to listen to us. As you heard here, all four of us are sticking with the 2-1-5. We're taking the guys from Broad Street. We're picking the Eagles here. We all have different MVPs, but we all have it within that 4.5-point margin. Guys, we're thrilled that you listen to us, and we look forward to you guys listening to us next week when we talk all about how the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Appreciate it, guys. Take care.